What is up, everybody? How's it going? We are live, dealing with a few things. We got our Landline magazine with Ben Franklin. Is that who that is? So, I just turned the computer off for the first time all week. See if anybody comes in here. And let's see. Get the comments in here. All right. So, I wonder if it'll look better with the lights out. There. It's dark. It's dark. Yeah, that's better. I think YouTube analytics don't like me this morning. Let's see. There it is. So we got that. Nobody's coming in here. Oh, well. And we'll just sit here for a minute. Let's see. Let's do a screen share thing, shall we? Oh, now we're getting some people in here. Here, we'll do this. Morning. Isn't that cool? I wish I had other video files to share on here. Let's see if I have any other. I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't. So, oh well. I plan on working on a vlog or two today, and probably dispatch myself on a load for Monday, which is the 21st, right? What it looks like, it's calming down. We had a few tornadoes last night down there in Alabama, which a lot of our drivers hang out. So I didn't get any bad phone calls or anything. So I guess everybody's all right. I'm going to turn the light on. You guys can see everything. I don't like the lighting in this room. I need a screen. I need a green screen, but we haven't got that technology based yet. I figured I'd go live this morning because I don't know when all the Las Vegas live feeds of death and destruction will start happening. So I don't want to interrupt any of those. Those of you who know. Those of you who don't, probably not worried about it anyways. We'll do some shout outs here. We got Jerome Jones. Good morning. Beefy Line. What's up? That's a good avatar there. Grafton. What's up? Scramble North. Good morning. Just making your coffee? Yeah, today's going to be a 2-pot coffee kind of day. I don't know why. Seems like one day I'm at home, I'll go through it quicker, and I think the colder it gets, the more I tend to go through coffee. It's like that in the truck too. I probably went through a whole gallon of water in the truck this week, just in the 4 days I was in it. So John Armstrong, good morning. Desert Okie Pam, good morning. Good vibes, good deal. Pigtail, haven't seen or talked to you in a minute. Hope all is well. If you want to call me today, that would be cool. Nothing Witty, good morning. Nothing Witty is in the house. Something. Good morning. Twitch. Morning, people. So I'm guessing Illinois ain't it today. Yeah, so that's what the title's kind of related to. I was watching the news, not the news, the Weather Nation, and I noticed that they were talking about a pileup on I-39 there in Illinois, around the El Paso, Illinois, Normal, Illinois area. And it's amazing that every single major system has a 100 vehicle pileup or 50 vehicle pileup. You know, it's just insane. And you know, and everybody's like, "Oh, look, it's all nothing but Swift and Werner and trucks." You know, you don't see no owner operators. You don't see no big hooded peeps. Blah blah blah. That's an arrogant statement, right? Because there was a lot of non-mega carrier trucks involved in this one. So it just, I think that people, you know, like a lot of carriers will push you to move. They won't do it visually, but they'll do it like they'll make you feel guilty. You know, I had a family member that was upset because, you know, they had to call into work because couldn't, you know, the roads were kind of dangerous. And they felt guilty about it. I'm like, don't feel guilty about it. You know, it's like no job is worth your life. No load is worth your life. And in this day and age in trucking, there's a lot of equipment that's going to be tossed because of these wrecks, these pileups. And so I guarantee you, out of that 100 vehicle pileup, there's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 trucking authorities that are going to be done, trucking businesses that are going to be done, because they might be single truck authorities with no means to get another truck, or it could be a lease operator who totals their truck and the company can't get any more, you know, or, you know, if you do replace your truck, you're paying $230,000 for a new truck versus $160,000, you know, just a year ago. So, and, you know, and I don't know how many people have upped their insurance, because, you know, as DIY pointed out, you know, you need to up your insurance amounts. So it's it's going to be, you know, like I said, it's going to be a wild winter, and it's not over yet, you know. So Hill Riders in the house, what's up? Dying Breed, hello YouTube, what's up? Let's close this here. Tolga, hello, what's up? Yeah, I think that's near my main yard there on 39. I'm going to try to get there today. I'm down by East St. Louis now, ready to roll to Rock Island to get this stuff off the trailer, off the trailer. Take a look at Google Maps, because it was scheduled to be reopened at 7 a.m. today. So I don't know if that's on point or not. So just keep an eye on Google for that. I don't know. I think the weather's cleared out of there, but I don't know how good the roads are, and it's really, really cold, which makes it hard to scrape the roads. What's up? Coffee and pie. Haggy, what's up? Too many people looking at the dollar, not the weather. I think, Mike, what's happening too is that there are people that can't afford to not go to work. They can't afford to, you know, lose a day running. You know, and my rule of thumb when I was a company driver, and I had to run through a lot more snow as a company driver. My rule of thumb was, if I couldn't average 45 miles an hour, it was time to park it. You know, you'd look at the radar and see if you were going to get out of it, because sometimes you're in a snowstorm for like 10 miles and then you're good, right? But if you can't average more than 45 miles an hour for over an hour, then it's time to shut down, or at least get a 2 or 3 hour break to let you know, that's why I think radar apps are extremely important, because then you can kind of see if you're going to drive out of it, or if it's just going to keep piling on, if it's time to find a truck stop. Because the other thing is, and I know some of you have experienced this, but you'll get to a truck stop, there's no parking, but the roads are shut down, and so you have to improvise. I had a friend of mine that was trapped up there in Buffalo for 2 days, and he said that people were just parking anywhere that they could. That it was just like a party almost. And so, and you have to be able to account for that. You have to have food, you have to have water, you have to have fuel, because maybe you shut down on the interstate, like that pileup. The people that came up on that pileup, they've got nowhere to go. They're not getting a hotel. They have people picking them up to take them to warming centers. But if you're in a truck and you're low on fuel, what are you going to do? Right? And you got to idle the truck, and you're stuck on the interstate. Cars can at least turn around and go the other way, if the DOT allows that, but trucks, you can't turn around. So I have friends that fortunately, I've never experienced that, but I've had friends that were literally stuck on the interstate in upstate New York for 2 days. And he said that there were people that come up the truck. Hey, you got any water? Hey, you got any, you got any food? Because I need a sandwich or something. So you got to be really careful of that. Morning, Thor. What's up? I would rather run the lower rates in the Southeast and be able to constantly move and not have to worry about the interstate being shut down due to 100 vehicle pileup because of a blizzard condition. So. Proper route planning could possibly have helped some folks avoid situations such as pileup. That is true. Trying to get home, got to buy a new front door. Fun story. Oh, I bet. You can call me later if you want. Tell me the story. Good rule 45. Yeah, because you're still gaining ground, but if you're like only averaging 20, 30 miles an hour, you're not gaining anything. You're just killing your clock. So at that point, it's just time. If you're only able to do 20, 30 miles an hour, it's probably time to shut down. And sometimes it depends on your load too. So I remember one time I had to go through some lake effect snow in Michigan. And I was, 45,000 pounds, and I was able to average about 35, 40 miles an hour. Sometimes I would hit 50, and I was okay. Once I got empty, though, coming back the other way, that was a different story. So that was a much different story. Oh, and that's the other effect, Dutch. Dutch is in another country, but yeah, 70 to 80 mile per hour winds. There's a lot of wind going on too, and that was one of the things that I did not like about yesterday. But yesterday, I did a vlog. And yeah, CB is still useful. I haven't started editing yet, but yeah, by the time I got empty yesterday, my rear doors were completely. I keep saying rear doors. It's the only doors on the trailer. The doors on the trailer were completely frozen, and the first, all the way up past the metal plate where it gotten wet from the rain just blowing in, was all frozen. So I was like, you know what? It was starting to get slick in the parking lot, so I left. I didn't book any loads. I just came home. Meanwhile, a friend of mine called and said, yeah, it's blizzard conditions up in Illinois, so you don't want to book anything that way. I said, well, I wasn't going to, but and then all the good loads going southeast either were going to another dead area on a Saturday or Sunday delivery, so I'd be wasting time out there, or had too many days, picked up Thursday and it didn't deliver until Tuesday, crap like that, that hits the spot market. It kind of blows my mind when that happens. And yes, the CB is still useful, but we have 80 mile per hour wind in Germany. Empty trucks must stop in the storm. Right. That happens out in Wyoming and all that. plus 89, 90 mile per hour winds expected in an hour. We're lucky here in Holland, the south of England, has code red plus 90 mile per hour consistent wind. That's crazy. That's and I don't know how heavy your trucks get there in Europe. I don't know what your max weight is. But here, if you're 40, 45, you're probably going to be okay unless it's a tornado. But if you're less than 20, then it's time to pull over. I shared a thing on two of the Snyder owner operator pages, which I'm still a part of, where it showed a Snyder truck that turned over. Leeds, Alabama got nailed last night with the tornado. And so I think stretches of Birmingham and I-20 were completely messed up because of all that. 50 mile per hour winds and light snow later this afternoon in southern Minnesota today. Yeah, Minnesota's another one that, And then there's Jeffrey Light, Truckers Education Network. What's up? Good morning, boss. Let's see. 40, 50 metric tons, but I'm empty. That's a little bit more weight than what we have. 83,000 American pounds. Oh, wow. That's heavier than what we run. Probably, you guys probably got lighter trucks. Those, I think the majority of the European trucks I see are cab overs. And your cab overs are different where your bunks are in a certain area, so you guys don't have like the big extravagant bunks. So I appreciate you doing the conversion. So thank you, moderator. So those weird bots come in, man. It's kind of funny. So, but yeah, I mean, this time of year, you got pileups due to blizzards up north, and you got tornado weather happening in the south. I mean, I don't know. I think that would blow a lot of you European minds of just how. I mean, you could literally be an American truck driver and literally be in 80-degree weather, drive a full 11-hour shift, and then be in negative temperatures. I've done that, and it's you got to be ready for anything. I carry my winter coats all year long. Well, maybe not all year long, but I have summer and winter clothing in the truck. I got enough stuff in my truck that I could be out for a month, and not need to do laundry and not have to hit the store for for non-perishables or whatever. So hey Fran, what's up? So I figured we've got our coffee here and brought to you by Meek Chiropractor. And just let's do this here real quick. Let's look at load ratio states here. And sorry, I'm not doing the multi-screen thing. Those of you in the spot market, we're going to play this game now. And no, I guess we're not going in. I'm not looking at my password. So I don't have my password memorized for the DAT board. So it logged me out because, computers will be computers. So, but what racer? What are you talking about? I got my password notebook all buried. So, but yeah. So if you're out there running, just be careful. There's a lot of blizzard activity going on in North Dakota, Minnesota. I don't think it was too active out west, up in the Pacific Northwest. So, but anyways, if you want, we can put a link in here and see if anybody wants to come in. Copy. What radar app do you have? Okay, that's a good question. So I have two. I have one called Weather Widget. Weather Radar Widget. That one's a good one. Kind of looks like that. Won't focus. There we go. As you can see, there's the weather up there. So if you're up there in the UP or Minnesota, and you're not having a fun day, of course, you're probably used to it up there. Then the other one I use is My Radar. Looks like that. This one will actually show you the wind. So like you see that one? There we go. Those purple lines, that's wind. That one's pretty good. I like that one. And My Radar's got a YouTube page. They do a report every morning. So those are the two radar apps that I use. And I highly suggest them because they're okay. So I'll give you a story. Let's go live for 20 hours. No, that's not going to happen. I don't have enough content. I don't have those talents. I got stuff to do today. So I was coming out of Harrison. I picked up a load of beverages coming out of Lenexa, Kansas. I was heading down 13. It delivered in Springfield. This is back when I was Cummy driver, and it was misting, but there was like no major weather coming through. It was just misting. Man, I gotta sneeze. And I get on Highway 7, which right there in Harrisonville, right past the scales, you take a left on 7, and it's 7 and 13 kind of combined. And I think it's 7 at that point, but then it joins up with 13. Anyways, it's a nice, good 4-lane highway. It's a good road. And we're driving along, and I noticed the temperature gauge on my truck said 34 degrees. And so I'm keeping an eye on that. I come around the corner, and I feel the truck a little squirrely. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. I look down, it's 32 degrees. So I slow it down a little bit. Now, mind you, I was like 45,000 pounds. And it was almost as if someone did this. And literally, 2 oncoming cars coming the other direction wiped out in 2 different directions. Luckily, they didn't cross me, and the car in front of me wiped out. And so I pulled over, and as I'm pulling over into the shoulder, I started to slide, and the rumble strips caught me. That's when I knew that it basically flash frozen. And so now I'm there's nowhere to park. There's nowhere to go. I said, well, I can either sit here on the shoulder and be a danger, or see if I can keep moving. So I go and check out the other car. the lady was fine, but her muffler had been bent up between her wheel, like into her wheel well. So her rear wheel wouldn't move. And so I helped her. I walked her over to the convenience store that was like literally like right there, and made sure she was fine. So I get rolling and I'm like 10 miles an hour. I am just, and I'm using the rumble strips. Got my four ways on, using the rumble strips. I'm getting on the CB radio telling people it just froze. Watch out, and everybody was doing 10. And I looked at the radar, and sure enough, I was going to drive out of this if I continued north for about 3 miles. So for 3 miles, it was, white knuckled, riding the rumble strips. And there was one vehicle that passed me that ended up almost wiping out, and then he slowed way down. So that's where, but had I not had the radar app, I wouldn't have known that I would be out of it shortly, right? So that's where the radar really comes in. Converted it. Wow, that's a lot of weight. Legally, we can only do 80 unless you got a permit. Do you guys use the Waze as navigation app or just standard Google? I use standard Google. I know people that have talked about Waze, but man, I've got behind on comments here. Seeing good morning, Steve. Very few shippers and consignee plan pickups and or delivery that makes sense for most drivers' clocks. Yes, I understand that for sure. Yeah, because there's a Click and Go app that's notorious for that, and they try to bundle these loads that you look at and you're like, unless you're a team, you can't do these. Especially when it gets to the second load. So I don't recommend doing the bundles on some of these Click and Goes. Mankato, there's a new truck stop with parking for 60 trucks. It was much needed. Good deal, Larry. I'd like to see the win. Yes, it'll let you see the win. Scott, what's up? Good morning. Let's see. All right, already read that. I miss when you can move up to 25 miles per hour before you start your clock. I made so much more money then. Yeah, that's the thing. Kills your clock, right? There you go. Told guy used Smart Truck Route 2 and an old Ram McNally 720 that seems to have just died. Garmin all the way, baby. People says that Waze working properly in U.S. scale, it shows every obstacle on the road, even users report the issues on the road and it's warning you, etc. I think if you watch Ratman Roden, he's got his system seems to tell him when there's a vehicle on the shoulder. So yeah, my radar is one. So yeah, but Waze and Google will both take you on non-truck routes. Yes. Thomas Wilson, what's up, man? I don't use no GPS. I'm old school. I feel you. So does Pale Rider. But I like using all my tools. I have an Atlas still. I know how to use it. I've used it. But, I generally run a lot of the same areas. So I very rarely bust it out. I mean, I can literally go from Phoenix to, I don't know, Allentown, Pennsylvania, without even looking at a map, believe it or not. It was funny when I was thinking about this yesterday. When I was training, when I was being trained, I was a trainee. My trainer, he was this 30-year veteran, whatever, and he's like, well, get your Atlas out. And he goes, now tell me how you're going to get there. Because he worked on mapping with me because he didn't use GPS. GPSs were fairly new. They were like $800 for some piece of crap that wasn't even truck friendly. And he goes, all right, so what you're going to do is you're going to take 44 to 270 to 255 to 55 then it goes to 70, and then when you get to so and so, you're going to take 34, and then when we get to this place, we're going to take, State Highway 13 to State Highway 4 to State Highway 18, and we'll take a left, and boom, we're there. And I just looked at him like, how do you do that? Now I'm the one doing that. So, and I imagine Thomas Wilson can do the same thing, especially when he's down south. If you ever want to know, Thomas Wilson and Harold Huffman, if you want to know anywhere to park, anywhere to go in the southeast, those two guys can spout off anything. Like, hey, I'm going to be on I-24 in Tennessee, and like, oh yeah, there's this, and this, and then the old days there was this, and this. So you gotta have good friends like that. Oh, 80 and humid. There you go. What's an atlas? That's funny. I love Marion McNally, but not mine anymore. They just don't last. I still have the old Garmin that I bought years ago. Actually, no, I take it back. It died because I destroyed it. I'm very violent when it comes to electronics. And a friend of mine gave me the same exact one that he bought at the same time, and it's still kicking strong. I thought it died, so I bought a new Garmin. And then one day I was messing around with the old one, and it still works. So it's kind of my backup now. Volume has really dipped. Yeah. You talk about the Snyder world. Yeah, volumes are going to dip for a little bit. And hopefully early March, you'll start seeing the dips come out. So. Look, I'm old school at heart, but I definitely appreciate the technology stuff that my dad didn't have. If you ran the spot market back in the day, you had to wait in line at the truck stop, even to talk to your dispatcher. You had to wait in line at the truck stop for the payphone, or you had to have a calling card, and you hopefully found the table at the restaurant that had a phone, calling card phone. I remember those days. Now, I wasn't a driver, I was a kid those days, but I still remember those days. The fact that you can run a single truck authority or a multiple truck authority with the power of the phone and the computer, that's amazing to me. My dad was, before he passed away, he had gotten really into computers. He built my first computer, and I went from teaching him how to use the CD player to him building computers for me. He just dove into that technology pretty hard, and he loved, before Google Maps, there was satellite. I forget what website had the satellite, but he loved that because he used to be a meteorologist for the Marines. And so if he could see the technology that I can use, live, satellite, technology, the stuff that we could see with the ELDs and all that, he would just, I think he'd be excited about it. So I've had my RAM for 3 years, and they need to replace the battery, but RAM doesn't update their maps. They're in a lawsuit about that. Wow. We still seem busy on Tanker. Good deal. Apple just bought the old TomTom, so I'm thinking they're going to try to make a truck GPS system. Prime stopped hiring because of the new 2-year trainer law. Jeremy, you'll have to explain what the 2-year trainer law is. I never did put a link in here. All right. All right. There we go. Good morning, Rick. So there's the link if you want to come in. Make sure you're not driving. Make sure you don't mention about tools, and make sure that you don't drop the F-bomb a bunch of times. That's all I ask. Because I get very little monetization as it is. I don't want it ruined. But if nobody wants to come in, that's fine too. I'm not opposed to ending this live feed a little bit early. We're only at 35 minutes, and I've kind of run out of things to say. We talk about weather. We talk about apps. Talk about technology. Can't train new drivers unless you have 2 years experience. That is a great rule, Jeremy. And what's happening, I bet you here's what I'm gonna assume. Okay, we all know what assume means, but hear me out. When you have a trainee who just started out of CDL school and a trainer that's only been driving for 6 months, that is a recipe for disaster. We know it, the companies know it, everybody knows it, and they'll justify it one way or another. Well, I imagine sometime, somewhere, somebody had a huge wreck that caused a lot of money and a lot of lives. And so that lawsuit is what made people go, you know what, maybe this isn't a great idea. And so there you go. It's that's probably a good thing, because the lack of training, the transition between CDL school and truck, and a trucking job is atrocious, so that's a good rule. What do you think is going to happen to Trudeau? He's doing some vicious stuff. I have no idea. I know I've been watching a couple of things from Glenn Beck, and I know and some of the stuff that they're doing over there is scary, and that could easily happen here. Just keep that in mind. Let's see. Trucking with Timo, what's up? Good morning. Jeremy hates Prime. I know people that do very well at Prime, so I'm not going to bash them. And I have friends that work in the office side as well. They do all right. Robert Daniel, what's up? No, look, to be honest with you, most guys don't last out here for 5 years. So now I recommend 5 years before you become an owner op. That's my recommendation. But in this day and age, you could probably do all right after 3. If you're running all 48 states for a company, running hard, and after 2 years, you're probably ready. It's knowing your lanes and knowing where to park and knowing how to handle all weather, all situations. That's important. Sometimes they'll take 2 years, but like if you're running regional or if you're running local, then you definitely got a bigger learning curve. We had a driver over here that went on to get his own authority. I believe the person that gave me this shirt. There it is, Cascade Transport. He was an oil well guy, so he didn't have a lot of OTR experience. And so it was all new to him, but he's done okay. So a lot of it's just mindset. Yeah, that's probably true. So 2 guys got fired from Schneider over videos. Look, it's funny when you see these guys on the Schneider owner operators page and they'll post pictures of, from the driver's seat while they're going down the road. It's like, and I've seen Schneider drivers have their headsets on as they're going through the gate and an OC. It's like, you realize there's cameras, right? You realize, and look, Snyder's not dumb. They know that guys go down the road, with their, they're not going to go a full 11 hours without talking to somebody, right? But if you're doing videos, if you show the low board, if you talk rates, they pay attention. Snyder is very aware of social media presence, both on YouTube and Facebook, because they know how much trouble that can get them in. And as a carrier, you have to be aware of what your drivers are doing. There's a driver that I follow right now that does live streams going down the road, and he reads the comments. There's several guys that I know doing that. Nobody that works here is doing that. So think about this. If you're listening, let's just say you're listening to a YouTube video going down the road, okay? And you have a wreck. Truck flips over. Your phone flies out past your arm's length, and you can't get it. Those of you who have been in a major wreck know that sometimes you got to cut that seatbelt, right? And let's say you can't get the phone, or you get knocked unconscious, or worse, and that phone is sitting there in the ground, in the dirt, in the broken glass, and it's running a YouTube video or a Netflix movie or Amazon Prime movie. You're done. If you've killed somebody, you will be arrested. If you cause massive amounts of damage to somebody else's property, including your own company's, your CDL is done. And you'll be lucky to keep your house. So is it worth it? Now, a lot of these YouTube channels that have podcasts, you can listen to the podcasts. But, and look, I know somebody that had a rollover accident. Okay. He was going down Highway 13 here in Missouri, just picked up a really heavy load. It's a very top heavy load. There was a state trooper right behind him, and he blew a steer. Truck went over, went into the ditch. Well, actually, no, he got it over into the shoulder. The shoulder gave way because he was so heavy. Went over. Basically, the truck rolled, did it almost like a very slow. He wasn't even really moving by the time he got it pulled over. The truck rolled down an embankment. The state trooper was right there, and he goes down there and he's like, "Are you all right?" He goes, "Yeah," And this guy was a big guy, so his shoulder was messed up because of the seatbelt. And the first thing that guy asked for was, what's your logs look like? And then the second thing he asked for was a cell phone. So just keep that in mind. This is Safety Steve talking. Oops, you skipped 2 years. Yeah, you got to take that stuff. Like Timcast is another one. I can't watch a full broadcast because it's just too much doom and gloom, right? Wax pencil on the window. Yep, that was something I did. Did the marker on the window where if I needed to know which interstates I needed to go, I would put I-95 exit 4, blah blah blah. I'd write it down. Works very well in the daytime. I learned that trick from a yard guy, and then people have learned that trick from me. Some just need to stay company. I see would have owner operators don't know hours of service. They don't know where to park. No GPS. They think that they need 34 all the time. What a mess. Landstar is also aware. Yes, Landstar. I know people that have gotten fired from Landstar because they were filming themselves on the shoulder, or they were filming themselves tying down a load on a flatbed, and it wasn't tied down to Landstar specs, and they fired the driver over it. So you got to be careful. Would you agree or disagree with all the info on YouTube, Facebook, blogs that a new driver can become successful owner-op or carrier or broker within months versus years? Is this good or bad? Both, Rob. And here's why. Because there's a lot of bad information out there. Experience is the best teacher, right? I know I have a friend that's making a lot of mistakes right now because he just didn't have the experience. You know, there's more to logistics than, you know, and Robert, you know this. There's more to being a broker than just having a phone and a computer. There's more to the logistics industry than, you know, here's a load, go pick it up. You know, this ain't the mail, you know. Now, for me, it's about mindset. I know people that within the first 2 years of them getting their CDL, they will get in a lease out program, pay the truck off, and then get their own authority, and they do well. And then you got people that have been driving for 20 years finally decide they're going to take the plunge, and they fail within a year. So experience isn't the only teacher, right? It's all about mindset. It's about, do you approach it as a business, or do you approach it as, hey, I'm getting paid more to do some crap, right? All right, let's add Pigtail. What's up, man? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah. What's up, man?
I am outside of Kansas City. Thought I'd tell you it's 8 degrees. It's 8 degrees here. Everything's plowed, but it's just a sheet of ice underneath the snow. And the Sat Brothers outside of Kansas City is overloaded. There's trucks parked in the road.
Wow.
For some reason, I can't even hear you.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Barely? Huh. Well, I don't know. I don't know how to fix that. Most people that come in don't have any issues hearing me. Maybe you got to turn up your phone, your volume on your phone. Not the YouTube video, but like whatever you're hearing through StreamYard. Yes, beast mode, probably. So, TJ, what's up? Oh, we lost Pigtail. Oh. So who do you learn brokerage from? I say go to work for one to learn it. They do it all. I've seen Sage Robinson trailers. So, okay, so that's good. That's a good question, Brandon. Maybe CDN can answer that too. If you work for a brokerage as an agent, that is probably the best experience that you can get. Okay. Just like, you know, there are courses out there, there are classes out there that people are charging tremendous amounts of money for, and so it's an investment. So it's a mindset. So you know, I don't know anything about any of these courses. However, working for another brokerage is probably the best experience that you can get. So if you're at Landstar, let's use Landstar as a perfect example. If you're a driver that wants to eventually get out of the truck, you're over at Landstar, talk to your agents and see, hey, you know, can I work for you? You know, and a lot of work can be done from the phone. And, you know, and I have friends that have worked for TQL. I have friends that have worked for C.H. Robinson. And that's how you learn. And then when you want to branch off into your own, you learn how to do that. Eric has talked about how to do that, and getting a brokerage is easy. Getting it, it's not a whole lot of overhead. Getting the broker authority and the insurance bond is not high at all. Makes it very easy, but you better understand and know what you're doing in order to utilize it. Pigtail, if you're listening, your audio was fine on our end. Just I don't know why you couldn't hear me very well. So. What is the upcoming U.S. trucker protest about? I have no idea. We don't have any mandates as far as limiting me from doing my job. Our rates have never been better. Now, if they're going in the solidarity with Canadian drivers, then that's something, I guess. But I don't know. We seem to protest on a whim if things aren't going our way. Like, oh, we don't want any LD, so we're going to protest. Well, that didn't do anything. Our rates are really bad, so we want to protest that. Now the rates are really good, so who knows? I kind of try to stay out of that stuff. So, but and so I can't really speak on other than what I've said about starting a brokerage, because technically I can do work for Rig Runner Logistics, but I have not invested the time to figure out how to get into the customers, because it's just I'm concentrating on one thing, the dispatch, and then as opportunities come along and more knowledge is acquired, then who knows. But I do know that it's tough to get direct shippers around here because we're in the land of Prime. We've got Transland, Prime, IWX, RBX. Ozark's got a terminal here. There's a lot of mom and pop, small 3 and 10 truck companies. There's several flatbed companies like Steel Haul and T Haul, Steelman. You've got a TMC terminal in Joplin. This Southwest Missouri is a mecca for carriers, both small and large. And so for me to go into French's and say, hey, I got no leverage, but hey, how about giving me some freight? I don't know how to do that. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I don't know how to do that. I have a friend who is a Landstar agent who now runs a brokerage and a dispatch service, and she knows this area better than I do, and she has her struggles as well. So I don't know the magic trick other than joining the 3PL, and then now you're up against the big guns like Sage Robinson, TQL, and all that. So, all right, we got CDN Freight Broker in here. What's up? Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep. Excellent audio. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if audio is good for both of you.
Yes.
So, what are your thoughts on that question there?
Yeah, that's why I came in. And why I'll maybe one day I'll go on the camera, but Steve, my background with the situation here. But the basically, yes, starting with a freight broker agent is beneficial because one, if you're starting on your own, when you go on the spot market, you have no credit history. So a lot of carriers, number one, are not going to call you. That's pure and simple. Having working as an agent for a brokerage does give you that financial backing there, However, and they'll provide you some of the training. They'll have the TMS system. But really, if you're considered an independent agent, I won't mix in Landstar just into this mix yet. But if you're an independent agent for that broker, really the key is that you're working with someone who's going to teach you, because I know, like within my own brokerage, we got some guys that they're reefer experts, but you talk to them about a flatbed, they don't know it, but they know everything they need to know about, so we got different people that have different knowledge. And so that is the one thing, you got a network where if you get a new client and you're like, hey, what carriers or what lanes, you're able to reach out to even if you don't know the other agents, you can reach out to your head office and say, this is my predicament. Either they'll assist you or they'll connect you to an agent that might be able to assist you and provide some insights to something you're struggling with. So that's really the key, is that when you're an agent, your job is to find customers, manage the customers, book the loads, manage it, and then your office looks after all the financials behind the scenes. So yeah, are you giving up a little bit of money? But it's kind of no different than why do some carriers factor their loads, is so that they don't have to hire accounts payable and receivables and have a $500,000 credit line against their own business.
I would think it's comparable to, like, I can go out and get my own authority and handle everything, and then it becomes a little bit harder, or I can run under Jeff's authority. So I imagine it's the same thing for a brokerage. You could become your own broker, but it might be more beneficial. I mean, it is more beneficial to run under someone else's authority, so to speak, and learn how to do everything that way.
Yeah, because like when you think about,
correct?
Yeah, exactly, because of the fact that when you think about, if you were to start brokering right now, let's say you created your own brokerage, so you get 5 to however many customers. At the end of the week, you're not just getting those loads, once they're delivered, and you say, okay, if there's detention times or other issues, extra charges. Once you finalize that load and you send it to your head office, well, you're now looking after that. You have to send the invoice to the customers. You got to collect them. You're chasing down the carriers for the PODs and the invoices. And if the customer says, hey, we didn't like the signature and all these things, you're not doing all that back office that you'd spend, a whole bunch of your time is going to be spent on that. Plus you're taking on that risk initially, because you have you have to have, like, if you're a broker, you're a bank, you need to have significant credit lines, because if you get even one customer that's doing say they're paying at $1,200 a load, and if they give you 4 loads a week times 4, that's $20,000 right there, $19,200 just with one customer in 1 month, and that customer might pay 30 to 45 days. So that's whereas if you're an agent for a company, most of them pay you every week or every 2 weeks. So there's that benefit. See, the Landstar model agent is completely different than any other brokerage model. And at least I know when I was at a previous brokerage, they were chasing us down, trying to get us to convert over. And one of the things I discovered was that if you have customers and you go to Landstar with your customers, they're no longer your customers. They're now Landstars. You're essentially a glorified employee. They treat you like an agent, but you're a glorified employee. And in fact, from my experience, and it could have changed, I don't know the currents, but a lot of the agents, they make more money when they book with an outside carrier than they book with an inside carrier. Because if you look at a lot of the agents, majority of the time what they're doing, they're just chasing down the load boards, looking for that small broker who's struggling to find a load, saying, hey, we could bring it onto the Landstar network, and then they co-broker through the Landstar network to use a Landstar driver on that load.
I know that from experience. I had I remember Chad Boblet, who's, he's on Rate Per Mile Masters Facebook page. He called on a load and figured out that it was Snyder. It was a Landstar load, but it was originally a Snyder load. And so he did some digging and found the actual Snyder brokerage person, and that broker at Snyder gave it to Landstar, gave those loads to Landstar as long as it only went on a BCO's truck. And when they found out that they were posting it on the spot market, Snyder immediately yanked all those Landstar loads. And some of my best paying loads when I was at Landstar were actually co-brokered through Snyder and all that. And what would made it frustrating is I would call on a load, hey, I'm missing this load going from point A to point B. I need to be at 2,200. And they're like, oh yeah, well, give me 15 minutes. So what they were doing is they were calling like C.H. Robinson, then negotiating with them and then they come back, well, we can get it for 1,800, and let me see if it's still available, and it's not, so I wasted a lot of time because of that practice. But yeah, you're right, Landstar is
see, the models change too, because like C.H. Robinson's models changed maybe over the years, but I don't believe they have a lot of independent agents anymore. I think that it's commissions people, and as far as I know, for example, with C.H. Robinson, they'll have national account salespeople that go out there and secure, a contract with McCain Foods or some big distributor, and that national account salesperson is not on the load boards booking the trucks. They bring those loads to the head office or to their office, and then they got 2 or 3 dispatchers that they say, okay, we got these 20 loads to move. Start at 8 a.m. Start paying $1,200, and then if whatever you don't book, every half an hour, increase the rate by $100, $50, whatever, until those 20 loads are booked. So it's a different model. Like if you have an employee model where it's commissioned, where it's a whole team working together, that's a little different compared to an agent, because an agent model is no different than what you're doing. Like you could add more trucks as a subcontractor under you, like build a little network of your own trucks under your current carrier, and you can do that with freight broker agents. Like one person's the agent, and then that agent can add his own dispatchers, support people, sales people, and then so but it's a little harder, because when you're doing that, if you get to the point, you have to have pretty big business, because if you're making say 60 or 70% on the loads that you're making, well, you're not running your business off of 100% profit. You're running it off of 60, 70%. So if you hire 2 or 3 people as they're on commission with them, well, that means that if you have to go get an office, it's not like you have 100%. If you make $200 on the load, you're not getting that $200. You're only getting 60 or 70%, whatever your agreement is. So you got to have but on the flip side, think about it this way. If you were to say, like, we know that James Best went on and created his own authority. There's probably a couple other carriers, drivers that have left and gotten their own authority. But if you take right now, if Jeffrey Lake said, okay, look at his top driver, why hasn't he left yet to become his own carrier? Just like the brokerage I'm at, we have some very, very elite brokerage, offices that could easily run their own business. Why don't they? Because they don't have to have those brokerages would need to have a $5 million credit line to run their business. So that's why they don't have to deal with all of that. Because imagine if you think, well, I'll take my 100% and all this. Well, just the other day there was another company that filed Chapter something 11 in California, a big oil company, and there was like 150 companies that are not getting paid, brokerages, carriers, and other vendors. Well, that's the risk that you take when you see, if you go with when you're an agent. One of the other keys is that, like for myself, if I call and I have a new customer, I get a credit application. If my office approves it, well, once I know they approved it, they're going to take it. If they come to me and saying, sorry, that company doesn't have good credit, guess what? Most of the time when I go back to my customer saying, sorry, we can't approve credit, we're going to have to do prepay, the customers are not shocked. They're hoping that I'm gullible. We were gullible enough to give them the credit. They'd be like, woohoo, we gave you credit. But I find that when my office comes back and says, sorry, this customer's credit's not good, I trust it, because they're taking on the risk. And that's the big difference. Like if you go land a contract that's going to give you, you're going to be booking, like I have customers with, $250,000 credit with our company. Well, how many brokerages can you do that with? Like right now, if you all of a sudden landed a new customer that you need $200,000 credit, that may not, when you're a small brokerage, that may not be up in your wheelhouse yet.
I would, I can't say, every load that we book, if we don't recognize, if it's not like one of the major brokerages, what I got to do is I got to go to factorsnetwork.com, which is, Thunder Funding, and check their MC number. And they either get a red, yellow, or green stamp. If they're yellow, we can call and say, okay, how much can we do? And most of the time, if it's under $1,000, they'll allow it. They don't want to touch a broker that's got yellow that, on a $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 load. If it's red, absolutely not. I don't even mess with those. And a lot of times they're yellow because there's no credit history. Like they're brand new and they just started and there's no history. And some of those brokers get desperate because they need that credit. So what is the best way for a brokerage, like a small startup like, Rig Runner or Best, to acquire that credit in the beginning, so you can have a payment history so that more factoring companies will touch you?
Basically your number one thing is when you're small, you pay all those brokers that took you on, because as you know, there's always that issue. Some of the brokerages won't work with new carriers until they've had their authority for 90 days and so forth. But the key is, as a brokerage, you pay all those factoring companies first and foremost. That's the key. The ones that have reportings, you pay them and you develop a relationship with them, and you ask them and stay in contact with them at all times, so that you see that that the credit is getting built up fast. That's the best way, because you're going to have that issue. Like I know that working with direct customers, I've had some customers that they say, we pay 60 days. That's just the way we are. By the time it's a process, it's 60 days. So you have to be willing. And I've had some customers saying, we won't take factoring invoices, because they know that some people are trying to do that. So that when you think about the funnel of customers available in the marketplace, the minute they say, well, we pay 60 days, that may cut that back, because some brokerages are going to say, we'll accept up to 45 days, but 60 days, no way. Because now you're running for, basically, you have to, if you're a broker and you have a customer like that, you need enough cash flow for 2 months. Imagine that. You need to have 2 months of you're booking their loads for 2 months. Once you get into the groove, it takes you, 4 months. After 4 months, it kind of starts cycling itself. But that first 2 months, you're booking for 2 months before you see any money from this customer. And then meanwhile, you've paid all your bills. If you have employees, you're paying them out, and so forth. So but yeah, you have to that's why you need to have credit. And that's why if you're trying to create your own authorities and run on your own, it's a harder go. Whereas if you have customers and join a reputable agent or brokerage and you become an agent for them, it's much better off. But you got to be careful who you work with, because you got to look at their credit history and what programs. Like, as an example, the company I'm with, if you want to haul dangerous goods, you have to have as a broker, I have to have my dangerous goods certification. They won't let me dispatch a load otherwise. And if I let it lapse, they'll block me. And same thing with in our system, as you're going to book a load, if they run out of credit, it won't let you dispatch a load. Now, again, a good brokerage, they will grow with you. If you have a customer that you need $20,000 credit, and all of a sudden a customer comes in and they give you a bunch more loads, and you explain what's going on, and they show them that if they see the payment trends, my company's been great. They grow with companies. They might start at 10,000, and 3 months later they're giving you 40,000, and 3 months later they're up to 80,000, and so forth. So that's the difference with being part of a network compared to, so like where you're at, it's still in the building stages, but it's hard to be both. It's hard, like you pretty much have to be. It takes. That's why when you consider, if you sat back and actually look at some of these brokerages, how they're working, they have an entire dedicated accounts payable and receivable team. They have an entire dedicated carrier setup team. Like, think about if you were to start brokering today. So you find the load, and you have 5 loads that you need. You found this customer that's going to give you 5 loads today. Well, if you're doing this yourself, think about, you have to either invest into something like RMIS so that the carrier setup process is fast. Otherwise, if you're doing the old school ways where the carriers email you the packets, well, what are you doing? You're booking one load. Now you're going to be keying in all that data for the carrier, and then you got to do that for the next, because at the beginning you're not going to have a database of carriers. And that's another advantage of joining to a medium-sized, I would say medium to large freight brokerage, is that if you come in with some customers, you're not scrambling for carriers. Like, our brokerage has over 35,000 carriers in our database. So, so you're stepping into, like, I've never had a carrier ever tell me. I've had it years and years ago when I first started. I was with a small brokerage, and a few times they say, "Oh, your credit history isn't consistent, or there's not enough credit history here, or this and that. We can't work with you." I've never had that where I'm at now, and also our ratings overall. So that's that's another thing. Those are all the factors, like your time to set up 5 or 6 carriers, like unless you spend the money, and also the vetting process. You have to pay for RMIS or similar programs. You got to pay for carrier 411. Like you got to have all the tools in place to, if you're going on your own as a brokerage, how are you going to check like a new customer, some place that's selling widgets, paper plates to bottled water? How are you going to check their credit history? New carriers, how are you tracking them? How are you verifying what's happening? Now, when a situation does happen and this carrier is holding the load hostage, when you're by yourself, you don't have all that legal background. Whereas if you're with a part of a network, you've got support, you got more clout to help you out. Like I know with my company, if I am about to land a big contract and I need clout, if I need to go do a in-person presentation, I can arrange it and I can call the president of the company and the VP of sales, and they'll fly to my town or wherever it needs to be. They'll go anywhere in North America and they'll stand beside you and provide that clout to help you make that sale, that contract, that big sale if you need to. So that's some of the things, the considerations. It's not just about that 100% revenue, but when you're a broker, you're taking on the risk of when the customers don't pay, you're taking on the risk that you get a shady carrier that will either hold loads hostage, or they're doing other funky things, or there's a big claim and the customer's holding you liable and the carrier's declining it, and you're by yourself and you're like, well, do you have your cargo contingent insurance got $5,000 deductible and it's a $4,000 claim? So you're like, well, if I put a claim on my carrier on that contingent policy, it's going to hurt me. So now I got to come up with that $4,000 to pay the customer, right? So there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, that's what we try to offer our contractors. Chef just put in the comment, bottom line is the broker doesn't pay, we still pay the contractor. And that's true. That's happened to a couple of our guys, and there's still a battle going on with one of the brokers. I mean, obviously that broker's blacklisted now, but that's why I really don't subscribe to the whole, anybody can be a broker. Like, what do they got invested in a phone and an office? Because there's more to it than that. And anybody who says that, it's kind of an arrogant statement, because there's more to it. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? I think on the Landstar platform, they make it a little bit easier for that transition, which is why you have these single, person agents that, all they do is get on the DAT board and find loads and hope that they can get them when the Landstar driver calls. But no, you have a lot of really good information, and I look forward to more info from you, because you've been very helpful for me so far, even though I haven't really utilized anything that you've told me. We're going to get there, but I'm trying to concentrate on, I don't want to spread myself too thin. So the dispatch thing, once I can get more organized and be a little bit more successful with that, then I think I can do well. I'm not even thinking about the brokerage side, but we do have that opportunity here at
Oh, excellent. Exactly. And to Jeff's point about not paying the broker, or if a broker doesn't pay that, they'll pay the carrier. But a lot of people forget, like, you guys have an owner operator model, but Jeff would know from his years of trucking that many carriers are taking on a risk when they hire. If you hire a company driver, often you're negotiating with the driver. You're either paying them so many cents per mile or percentage of the load. And then you're guaranteeing, some of these carriers out there are guaranteeing their drivers so much pay per stop, whether or not the carrier collects that much money from the broker or not. They're also guaranteeing detention pay after a certain period of time. There's a lot of guarantees that carriers are putting up front, that they hope that their connection with their customers or the brokers that they're using pays for this, but they're on the hook for those things off the hop. And so that's a lot of shippers and consignees don't understand that if a driver sits there for 2 hours and 50 minutes or 30 minutes, so that 30 minutes, that driver's getting paid by the carrier no matter what. The carrier hopes that he gets compensated for it, but in some cases it doesn't. It's not as easy as one would perceive.
Yeah. So
Okay.
See what Fran says. Fran says, true, I see the same people saying brokerage is easy, back on the truck. So either they don't know what they're doing, or it doesn't pay like they say, but I know the later is not it. Look, here's the deal. and that's, someone brought up the point of social media earlier. Social media can make it look like something's easier than it is. It's all about perception. And with the long conversations I've had with Eric about, look, there's more to the logistics industry than what we see on the dashboard. It's a very complex system. It's about leverage. So we as a carrier, we have so many trucks. Does that give us leverage? No, not because a lot of our drivers pick their own freight. So it's not like I could show up at a customer and say, hey, we got, X amount of trucks with X amount of trailers, we can service your customer. So there's that aspect. It's social media can make it look like it really is that simple, because people don't see the background work. Like Jeff makes it look easy to run a carrier, and granted, he is a master at streamlining, and he was still running his own truck while still running the carrier when we had 10 trucks. However, it's not until you see behind the scenes the amount of phone calls he gets, and now the emails he gets, and the way he does his invoicing and everything else. I had a newfound respect for him when I went and visited him a second time getting my ELD installed, and really just saw how busy he is. And people forget that when you get your own authority, and this is why I didn't jump to get my own authority, was you lose a lot of leverage. Now you're a new authority. Now on Carrier 411, you're just a guy under 90 days, and so you're not going to be able to negotiate as good as rates. You're not going to be able to run in the same areas. You're not going to be able to, are you going to pay for the factor? Are you going to pay for the quick pay? What if the broker goes out and doesn't pay you? Now you got all this fuel money. I mean, there's so many things into it, and social media tends to not tell you all these things. So people are like, oh, I'm gonna go buy a truck and make a ton of money, or I'm gonna go start a brokerage and do what these people do, and it's not that easy. And I think having the right mindset and expanding your perception, I think, is the key to success in anything you do, whether it be opening a bakery or opening a brokerage, or starting your own authority and bringing on drivers.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that, when you take onto consideration that like a carrier or a broker, like if you say, oh, I'm going to go out and get, like, say you decided, I'm going to go get your own authority, Steve, and you're not going to use a factoring company, I'm going to keep all that money. Well, so if you did 5 loads in a week, you did a bunch of short hauls, 1 load a day. So you do that for a month. Mm-hmm. Well, you invoice. So every week you come home thinking you're going to have home time. Well, you're going to be spending that time sending out the invoices so that you're ready to run again on Monday. Now, you have to have the systems in place that in 30 days from now, you're chasing down those brokerages or the carrier. If you had some direct customers looking for that money, and you got to find the emails and the invoices and chasing them down. Oh, well, we were missing this, and it's not been scheduled for pay yet. And so, when you start getting 6 months into your authority, and if you're doing anywhere from 3 to 5 invoices a week, add that up, and you're managing that on top of the current loads. And that's no different than a brokerage side. If you were to say, yeah, I'm going to stay at home and get off the truck and do the dispatching, meanwhile I got some connections, I'm going to get my own customers, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you created your own brokerage, in addition to booking loads and trying to build your business, once you start getting that business going, you're now chasing down those invoices and trying to get paid. So whereas if you're with someone where you got a back office, now either you got to pay someone to do it, and that's where, and I agree that the idea of factoring has its merit. Some people would say, oh, you're giving up that 3 or 5%, but it's basically, it's like Jeff has said for years, it's your payroll department for your trucking company. Now, there would be a point, like with Jeff, I'm sure there's going to be a point in time where if you do the math on it, when you start paying over 50 or 60 grand a year to the factoring company, then you're at the point where you start to say, well, do I hire someone, right? Because even if you're paying $35,000 a year to a factoring company, can you hire a full-time qualified AR AP person with benefits for $35,000 a year? Likely not. Right. So that's where your factoring company takes that burden off of you. And plus, when you're on the road and you're trying to book a load, You go to their website, you check the status if they're factorable or not. And if the factoring company has taken the time to say this customer is good, then you book the load, or that broker is good. Otherwise, it's real simple. Hey, they're not willing to take the risk, so why should I?
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. I see on Facebook all the time, people will, hey, can you check the credit for this? You know, because I don't use a factoring company or whatever. And look, there's good and bad with factoring, and that's a whole topic for a whole different day. But you know, depending on who you factor with and the support. But you know, but that's where social media makes things look easier than they are. And so, you know, it's all about perception. You know, if I was to get my own authority, I would probably be paying somebody, number one, to set up the authority, because that's one of my weaknesses. And then invoicing, I would be paying somebody for invoicing. And so at the end of the day, if I look at my cost, my insurance would be higher, you know. So that's how I look at the 20% that I do, you know, that Jeff takes from the top of whatever I negotiate is he's handling the ELD, the safety responsibility, the cargo liability, the invoicing, the factoring. He's covering all of that, you know. Now we can take rough math and okay, am I ahead or behind on the 20%? For some people, their insurance is high, where that 20% they're losing a little bit. But there's other people whose insurance is real cheap. They can gain something even if they hire out all those things. But then at that point, what's the difference? So that's I believe in consistency, which is why I have no plans to go anywhere, and I would like to help Jeff build the brokerage, but I realize that I know about as much as the size of this pencil eraser, and and so, and talking and networking with people like you and people like Eric gives me an advantage over people that you know may not, you know. And that's where social media has its benefits, because Eric found me through my YouTube, you found me through YouTube, and and you know, with technology we're able to have phone conversations and Zoom phone calls and the stuff that you've sent me. You know, it's that's the benefit. But you know, it's all about perception. So I appreciate the info that you've put forth this morning. And then,
well, in closing here, I'll hop off here, but I was going to say, I think I forwarded you that email about that Amazon Transportation Operations Manager role.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that yet. I apologize.
Yeah, well, when you look at, so here's the interesting thing. So you look at, why is Amazon different and better? When you think about, you can order a package of whatever and it arrives in your door within a couple days at a really good price, and it's really efficient. You click a couple buttons and it says your order's being shipped. You know, from the end user standpoint. So there's a lot of steps in between there. And guess why Amazon is so much different and better? Well, if you look at their postings on their jobs and the qualifications, they have a transportation operations manager role. So you're overseeing some other transportation supervisors, but they're looking for someone not just with transportation experience. They want someone with a master's in business or engineering. Imagine that for a transportation job. They want an engineer or a master's in business, not just some guy who's, you know, knows how to, you know, run a trucking company. They want beyond that, because they want to look at all the computer street logistics and being able to design systems and evaluate systems. So that's how I think we're going to see that in the coming years, is that we're going to see a lot of the larger trucking companies are going to be looking for those people that have these superior skill sets to develop systems to make their companies as efficient and cost effective and profitable, and then having people underneath them to do all the daily execution, but having some that top level to develop the systems is going to be one of the things that's going to happen as we move more and more into technology.
I agree. Well, Robert, I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Thanks for coming on and sharing the information, which is very, very grateful for that. And you have a lot of knowledge that could help a lot of people. So I appreciate you coming on here.
Have a good day.
Thanks. Jeff says the more volume through a factory company, the lower the rate. Yep. Yeah, Jeff found me through YouTube. So anyways, guys, we're going to get off here. We've been at this for an hour and a half. Everybody be safe. The weekend's coming up, so make sure you strategize what your weekend load is going to be so you're not sitting all weekend, or you get your 34 but still make a decent amount of cash. And hopefully everything will go well for you. Hopefully you're not in too bad of weather, and hopefully you're not stuck on the interstate somewhere or stuck at a truck stop because the roads are shut down. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody and everything. I'm very grateful. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll end